sturdy evidence that in fact, if you do the core samples of the Earth, they find this nuclear glass all over the Earth that exists in that time period. And it seems like something happened that reset civilization. And there's very little evidence of advanced civilizations before that up until recently, up until the last couple of decades. They started uncovering things like Göbekli Tepe and all these other structures that are clearly from more than 12,000 years ago. And they're really complex and really large with enormous stones. And it's sort of caused people to rethink the history of the Earth and the history of human civilization. And Atlantis has always been the big one. That has been the one that everybody talked about, was this incredibly advanced civilization, and no one can figure out where it is.
Right.
Or if it was real.
I think that Atlantis, because surely that wouldn't have been necessarily the name just through like the change of language, you know, over, let's say, 12, 13,000 years ago, which would be the time frame. So like surely there would be several different changes of language, but I think it represented a civilization that was doing great things. They were more global than what many people think would be possible. Atlantis was said to be a kingdom made up of, or an empire, excuse me, made up of 10 kingdoms. And then there was the lost city of Atlantis, which was the capital, which was said to be made up of concentric circles, 2 of water, 3 of land, and essentially that they were obliterated by a cataclysm, as passed down by Plato, although it's worth mentioning that Plato got the story of Atlantis from Solon, who was his uncle separated by 6 generations. But what most people don't realize is that Solon had traveled to Egypt, and so it's the ancient Egyptians is where that tale comes from, which makes it even more bizarre because I would argue that the most spectacular ancient civilization is the Egyptians. I mean, no disrespect to the Romans.
Hard to deny.
Right? I mean, let me just say, because I want to, on this podcast, encourage people to travel to Egypt. Joe, you got to go.
I really want to. A friend of mine just went, and she got back, and she was telling me incredible things about it. Jamie, will you pull up the photos of these concentric circles? Tell him.
Yeah, the Richat, R-I-C-H-A-T. It's worth mentioning that.
Got it already here.
Yeah, in the first couple, I just want to say it's Richat. I used to call it Rickot. I was mispronouncing it. But let me ask you this, Joe, real quick. When you saw my video, was that the very first time you had ever seen this thing before?
Yeah.
That's the thing. So many. When I first saw this, I was like, what the fuck is that? By the way, you see that white, all those white blemishes? That's salt. This was under the ocean, and people, let me just say, you mentioned Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock. I love them. And I know for sure that they don't particularly think this is the site for a few different reasons. So let me say there's absolute doubt. Even I am not 100% certain. I'm not even 100% certain Atlantis existed. What I am certain is that humans were doing spectacular things, and a cataclysmic event happened called the Younger Dryas and reset something for somebody.
Is there a natural explanation for this formation?
Yes. So let me say that it is considered to be mysterious. They're not 100% certain of it. However, the consensus is that it was a volcanic dome that had risen and collapsed multiple times, like 100 million years ago, allegedly. I say allegedly. I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. I'm just saying I would like to know where sometimes they get these figures from. Like, explain to me why it was 100 million years ago and not 99 or 98, because here we are talking about how crazy things changed in just the last 12, 13,000 years. So when they throw around these numbers, 1 million years in itself is an incredibly long period of time. But getting back to your question, some had originally thought that maybe it was an impact site from an asteroid or perhaps, but there's no evidence for it. Like there's none of the nano.
The problem is there's these concentric circles. I've never seen anything. Obviously, I'm not an archaeologist, but I've never seen anything like this even if you study structures that are like man-made structures. I've never seen anything like this that humans have made, but I've definitely never seen go to that one with your curses on, Jamie.
Please.
So is this?
All right.
What is this?
Okay,
one step at a time, because we also have to take into consideration that people are just listening. So kind of describe what we're looking at here.
Okay, so what you're looking at is approximately 250 miles inland in the total barren desert of Mauritania, Africa. So
but this image looks like, why is it blue?
That's just showing you
what it used to look like?
No, this is what it looks like right now through, I forgot what you call this type of animation, but it's essentially a satellite imagery that they enhanced in order for you to see the difference in elevation and the actual structure to itself.
Okay.
But-
So, like, if there was water in this area, you would see it this way, but it would be these concentric circles that are raised above the water, and then the water would be inside of it like that.
Well, just to clarify, this particular image, no, this is not trying to represent water. So that blue is actually picking up on salt. So
Salt. All that was salt. But I mean, it used to be underwater, right? It's
Well-
salt because it was underwater.
that's what I believe, and that's what makes the most sense to me. Others will disagree, and let me tell you why. It is currently 1,300 feet above sea level. It's 250 miles inland. And so some people say this was never under the ocean, at least not for the last tens of millions of years, is what the scientists claim. I argue that since the salt is still there, and not only that, Jamie, if you go to the other images that show you more of the white, the one that you were previously on, the one. The one to the middle to the left, right there. So those areas with the most white blemishes happen to be the areas that are the lowest in elevation, which to me tells me that salt water had settled there. But not only that, Joe, Atlantis was said to be, like we said, multiple rings of, water and land. However, it was said to open to the sea to the south. And what you're looking at here, that was the south, so this is oriented north, south, east, and west. What do you see to the south? And especially if you can get another.
This is a very flat area that looks like it's the lowest elevation. Like around it looks like it's higher. I mean, it's hard to tell from this image.
Can you Google map it? Just type in, even if you went to Mauritania, so you can see this from space. Astronauts use it as a locator, and they weren't really familiar or aware of it until the Gemini missions in the early 1960s. So if you go to, if you just go to Google Earth, you'll be able to find this quite quickly. It stands out. And it's why they call it the Eye of Africa or the Eye of the Sahara. All right, so just pan out a little bit, and it'll provide us with a much. Keep going. All that white is salt. In fact, I had a friend, Josh Gerson, that went out there and tasted that shit off the fucking ground. That's salt. Because a lot of people say this was never under the ocean, and I'm like, all right, you see all that? Even Randall Carlson himself, which let me just say, he, for a few reasons, doesn't. He favors the Azores. He doesn't think this is likely to be the location for a few reasons.
Favors what?
The Azores. The island chain, which would be, it's.
And he thinks that was Atlantis?
To him, he's partial towards that. But so he analyzed this site, and you see all those striations, how it looks like the ocean, so that's all water erosion, Joe. And if you scroll in, so remember when Randall was on your show and he showed you the Missoula floodplains and all those giant ripples from the huge current that it went through? This is here. So scroll in, right there where your cursor is, Jamie. Yeah, scroll right in. You're going to see those same water ripples. Keep going, because this is what you're looking at here is panned out. This is many miles. Like, keep in mind, this structure is 30 miles
that's
across.
Crazy. That looks like the bottom of the ocean, like if you see where the water breaks on the sand.
Yep, and I have
wow,
there's a
that's
better
crazy.
picture. And that, just to clarify, that white is salt, and that is because a lot of people don't know, Joe, that the Sahara Desert wasn't a thing until approximately 5,000 years ago. It's only in the last several years, and by the way, I'm quoting MIT research here, that the Sahara goes back and forth from green to desert approximately every 20,000 years. They believe it has something to do with the Earth tilt, and that's worth discussing. But so this whole area, because people are like, well, that's not Atlantis. I'm like, well, first of all, if the Sahara Desert was a lush green tropical paradise, which had the largest known freshwater lakes ever known to have existed, for example, Mega Lake Chad, which is like 3 times more water surface than all of the North American Great Lakes combined.
Oh.
Big sucker.
Holy shit. How's it not an ocean?
I know. Well,
it's all fresh water?
It was when it existed, and that was at the time when the Sahara was green. And it also had some of the largest known rivers that were known to have existed throughout the world. I think it'd still be ranked 10th today or something like that. But so you have to, when you see this, people have to imagine that this area was once green, and that because one of the arguments I make is that the fact that salt is on top of that dirt, to me, is indicative that the ocean flowed over here far more recently than what people think.
How wide is this structure?
Okay, so
concentric circles.
I meant to bring. I don't know what laser. Do you have a laser pointer in here?
No.
That's okay. So the circles themselves is about 14 2.5 miles across. However, if you go the complete shebang, the whole circle itself is just shy of 30 miles.
So the whole thing is 30 miles, which would be like the size of the city.
Right. Well, keep in mind the outer ring would have been water, so that wouldn't have necessarily counted. But some people will say that this is too big according to Plato's description. And let me just say that I'm like, well, hold on a second. I don't think that we should consider that, because of loss of translation, that we should consider the measurements a key detail. The question becomes, is it big enough to be a city with possibly millions of people? Because the way it was described is that it was a city that was said to be busy all day, all night, rich in trade, with languages spoken from all over. So I'm like, okay, that would imply millions of people. I mean, if a city's busy all day and all night, I think of large metropolitan areas like New York, Chicago, London, whatever. And so if this was indeed an ancient, or a site of an ancient civilization, well then it would have, I mean, they're obviously not going to have skyscrapers, so it would have to be an area big enough to sustain that many people, and the Richat structure certainly does.
So the idea would be that this would lead out to the ocean, and that these circles would be where the water is, and the ridges would be where the structures are, where the houses and the buildings.
Yep. And people will say, well, where is that stuff now? I'm like, well, look at it. It got obliterated.
Well, just look at what's going on with the sand and those clear water erosion marks in the sand. But that also could be wind, right? Couldn't the way that the ripples in that sand, couldn't that be wind?
Both. However, just to clarify.
Is that sand that is where the curse is at right there?
Yeah, that's all sand. However, it's also, actually go to the right where it says layers, Jamie. Can you scroll in right there? Because that will show you the ripples more. So it's a combination of sand and rock.
You mean to the left?
Right there. That's what I'm talking about. Those are giant ripples. And I'm quoting Randall Carlson, who I consider to be an expert on geological formations. And so, yeah.
Right, but isn't that what wind-driven sand looks like? If you go to dunes look like that.
Yeah, and undoubtedly.
But hold on, this is sand, right?
Yeah. Well, it's a combination of rock and sand in between.
Right, but this is like what it would look like, if wind-driven sand and rock underneath it.
Right. So what the implication is that it was blasted by water, and then after that, the wind has done its thing and moved the sand all over it and in between.
So 20,000 years ago, this was all green, lush forest?
No, 5,000.
5,000?
So
really?
So I could show you.
When did they think Atlantis?
11,600 is allegedly when it was destroyed, which mirrors the Younger Dryas climate cap. Because so this is 600 BC, and Plato said that it happened 9,000 years earlier, so that would be 11,600 years ago, which coincides with the Younger Dryas climate catastrophe, which makes it so compelling. To me, that is actual scientific evidence that indicates that Atlantis actually existed. Because it's very specific.
It is very specific. It's not scientific, right?
Well,
there's no real evidence.
Okay, let me rephrase. That a civilization. Yeah, let me rephrase. A civilization got fucked.
Yeah.
11,600. So never mind Atlantis. Let me rephrase. A civilization was around. The stories of it were passed down, and they got obliterated. So that's what I'm implying.
Well, we definitely know that the Younger Dryas impact theory is extremely plausible. There are, without a doubt, like many impact points on Earth where they find this tritite, this nuclear blast.
So the thing is, there's these orbs popping up in the sky over locations, and they're over large bodies of water, and people have been noticing them in the sky, and they look like moons. I've noticed in Seattle, right over the bay, there's one. This thing right here, they're see-through, but the clouds bend around them, and it's weird because it's really windy when it happens. It's like they're almost like balls of energy that just throw wind around. It like creates like a vortex, and there's weird things that happen around these things. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to explain it, but you could definitely see that the clouds are bending around something, and I don't know what it's a sign of things to come or something, but it looks like an eye in the sky because the way the clouds bend around it, it makes it look like an eye socket and everything, which I just find kind of funny because I said it looks like a Death Star with a hole, with a little, because it's like see-through. It looks like a moon with an iris in the middle. If you can really see it with your bare, naked eyes, you'd be able to see it. But it's hard to tell, but it's there. It's perfect circle right over the right. It's huge, and it's not just an optical illusion. This thing actually, the sun shines through it and leaves a trace and lets you know that it's there. Right here. Where was it? The sun lets you know. Right there. It's right in the middle of it, right there. And the sun is hitting it right there, letting you know there's something in there, something in the sky between us and the sun. And that's what that is. Once the sun passes it, that's what you're looking at. That thing right there. It's a ball right there in the middle of the sky, right there. And the wind, there's clearness, it's huge. Now the thing is, I'm connecting it because it's like a message is saying that something's about to happen, man. When I see stuff like this just pops up, and I'm like, okay, you can't think of how something like that would happen, right? But like that's supposed to be like an excuse for Atlantis. We're over here in Seattle. Like powerful wind. I think they said one of the theories is that wind created this. I think that could be possible. Wind and water. And they said it's salt water up there at the top of those. That's high elevation. La Palma volcano right here, showing shockwaves and portals. There's something. I think that these orbs, they're like invisible. They're near these locations because right to the right of the one over here in Seattle that I'm looking at, there's the we got Mount Rainier to the left of this. To the left side over here, there's Mount Rainier down over here in the background back there, and that's a volcano. And so whatever this thing is, it's near these volcanoes and water, and they're talking about, oh, this thing is on water and volcanoes and stuff. They got all these different excuses to explain what it is. And everybody's been doing these videos about the Travis Scott portal, about how it looks like the La Palma volcano looks like the Travis Scott portal. And then all of a sudden, these guys popped up on Joe Rogan with the Eye of Africa, which looks just like the La Palma volcano shockwaves, and they say it's Atlantis, which is a port city portal, okay? And then you have another, like they're showing you all these different images of what it possibly looked like and what it could look like, this and that. And then you have Travis Scott's portal to hell. These are portals, and they're showing you again the same symbolism. Now that little thing in the middle, see, that's what I'm looking. That's what I'm saying. It's like a dark sun or something in the background. It's see-through, like in the middle of the portal, and like it's weird because I feel that see how it's like an eye in the sky back there in the back of the portal. See, that's what I'm saying. It's weird. It's like maybe there's invisible things that come through portals or something like that, things that we can't see. We got possibly on certain frequencies to notice or understand. But yeah, honestly, I'm thinking that something's going on with these portals and storms and portals. And and surges, crowd surges, the bodies, human mass populations, and portals, volcanoes and portals. Because even Travis Scott concert, the thing is a volcano. It's a volcano, just like La Palma is a volcano and it shows the shock waves like a portal. And then they're saying that, oh, Atlantis was a volcano. This place, it could have been a volcano. And they're like, nah, that's not right. Hollowed out volcano. But this looks more like a portal, like Stargate. You know how like Stargate, they like the things come out the sky. Just my thoughts on it. I don't really understand, but possibly somebody could pick this up. I'm gonna try to recommend it to Casey from Into the Stars and see if he could possibly take a look at it and, you know, see if we can get some further insight of somebody else's ideas, if somebody else got any connections to this. Thanks for watching the video. Have a good day. Bye.